I'm going to read some of the poems from A Cluster of Noisy Planets tonight, and I'll just say a few words about them, and that is that they're all prose poems, which is a form I've been writing in for the last 10 years pretty relentlessly. I haven't been writing lined poems, and I don't have a really good explanation as to why I've been so attracted to them, but they've just been fertile. Like I haven't run out of things to say when writing prose poems, and there's something about the prose nature of it that just invites wildness. I don't feel constrained in a way that lined poetry always did on some level. And I know that's very superficial and it probably doesn't make a lot of sense, but I frankly don't even like to think about it too much. Like if I'm making poems that I like, I'm going to just go in that mode until I get bored, which is my habit. So I'm sure I'll change soon. And I'll just read a handful of them to you. And I'll start with the first poem in the book, which is called Greetings. And they're all tiny paragraphs. They're maybe 5 or 6 lines each. So this one is called Greetings. I counted the water towers, the active smokestacks. These were the breadcrumbs I thought would lead me back. Now I know it's possible to drive so far we forget why we left, that the journey continues even after the car breaks down. I used to think I had no message, but the message is me, bloodshot and hungry, spilled coffee down the front of my shirt. People of the future, gather round. I have traveled through ink to greet you. And you know, I know I've probably told my students before that I don't really put a lot of thought into the organization of my poetry collections because I'm somebody who likes to not read sequentially, so I don't put a ton of thought into it. But obviously, with this book, I thought I had a great first and last poem. So I'll close with the last poem eventually. But you know, it is kind of this address to the reader and this idea of the future that the book keeps circling around. And this next poem is called The Pond. The world is in short supply. This field of goldenrod will never be enough, and the ocean feels suddenly crossable. In every apple, an orchard waits, but who has 20 years to cultivate it? Above our house, the contrails of the jets have turned into actual clouds. The rain they promise is another lie. Meanwhile, the taste of my blood implies that I am rusting, that a broken machine lies half submerged in the pond I carry with me. A river of birds. A river of birds filled the sky above his house. It went on for days. That many animals can't be wrong, he reasoned, as he waited for the frost to blossom. He thought about his prospects, a half tank of gas, the cabinets full of soup. Later, when the river went dry, he endured its blue and empty channel. The birds that remained were different. They shook once against the cold. They sat on the wires and looked down on him, undeterred by the lack of bounty. Marbles. At a certain point, manic depression became bipolar disorder. The world has always been in flux. Just look at the sky. There are fewer stars now than when I was a boy. I cannot say who took them. I cannot remember the pictures that they made. Consider Istanbul. It used to be Constantinople, and before that, Byzantium. Nothing endures. I had a jaw men wanted to punch. Now the ground I stand upon feels like it's made of marbles. In Wyoming, they've just begun hunting the grizzly bear again. It is finally safe enough to be killed. I can't get over it. My teeth were once a dazzling white. All 3 of my brothers were living. This next, and again, I don't know if I've apologized for this yet, so I'll do it now. I don't have a lot of snappy stories about the poems. for whatever reason, and I hope that they are accessible enough that there's nothing too private here that I'm revealing. And a lot of my poems do try to reference something outward that we would all know about before it goes interior. But and I guess this is one of those poems, and it's called "The Problem with the Colosseum." Everyone wants it to continue. The arches, the latrines and animal cages, the rooms where men wept in what passed for their last privacy. When the emperor showed up, the lions ate the slaves. There could be no other outcome. It's still here at the center of Rome, obstructing traffic and collecting the dung of gulls. For the price of a shrimp dinner, we can see where Caesar sat. We can feel the stone that bore him up and which we have not let crumble. I'll just read two more. This one is called Mutations and Duplications. These birds, for example, so many songs and so few nests. They won't make sense until I find out where they came from. Isn't that always the case? Vestigial fingers show up inside the flipper of the whale, and avocado derives from the Aztec word for testicle. Way leads on to way. I could trace myself back to an Irish king and still I'd have no idea. All the while, the swans are duplicating their grace in the waters of our lagoon. And the last one I'll read is the last poem in the book, and it circles around this idea of the future. I think that's all you need to know. And it's called "They Need Something More Durable Than Longing and Wine." This is why lovers show off their dog bites and appendectomy scars, the tattooed crosses they have come to regret. They keep them hidden until they can't, until somebody touches with a tongue the place that used to hurt. After all this time, ink remains the medium of love letters. It's how the future knows what happened. And that's it. Thank you very much. You've been very patient.